All right, welcome to On My Block Podcast, Green Bay Packers podcast. I'm your host, Mike Wahle. Thank you for listening. As always, my man Amon Green is in Nebraska right now, and I am in Deutschland. I'm in Germany, and so schedule's a little different, but we want to keep the show going. And as always, we want to thank our sponsors, BetOnline.ag. BetOnline, basketball is back, and BetOnline remains your number one source for all your sports betting needs this season. You'll always find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, and game trends on BetOnline, and is your continued source for all sports wagering information. BetOnline features live betting, free contests, and giveaways all season long. Always the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports and events, whether that's NFL, NBA, NHL, MMA, tennis, boxing, e-golf, e-sports, or even golf. By the way, what a fight with John Jones. God, the guy's unbelievable. Hope he fights Nagano. Head to betonline.ag to join and your promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, to receive your rewards. Bet online, where the game starts. Now, today's going to be a little bit hypocritical of me. I know that coming into it because it's the off season. I'm in Germany teaching, working with I had a coaches clinic this last weekend with 247 Sports, coaches from all over the GLF, all the lower leagues in Germany. So Germany works with every sport has, League One, League Two, all the way down, could be 9 leagues. And we're going to talk about it a little bit, but they have relegation, like they have relegation in soccer, which means that like the bottom 2 teams in every league have to fall down every year and go to the next league. And then the top 2 teams from the League Two, if you get in the top 2, you go up to League One. So different pay structure, different marketing rights, different TV rights and everything. So it's a really interesting and unique model. And I think it's probably something we should look at in football in particular because of the XFL, the USFL, et cetera now. But I said I'm going to be a little hypocritical today because the combine is really the only source of news that we have. And this is why they still have it. Because unlike Mark Murphy, who suggests the combine still serves a purpose, Troy Vincent, DeMaurice Smith, suggesting that maybe it's time to get rid of it, in particular because of what it means for the players. The players go in, and whether they're running a combine in a different environment, whether they're not sleeping in the same bed, whether they're going to 32 medical facility or medical teams or staffs of the National Football League, literally table by table by table or room by room by room, answering the same questions over and over. And what are those staffs really trying to do? They're really trying to, from the player's perspective, they're trying to devalue you. They're trying to give the teams a reason not to draft you. So you usually wouldn't go into a job interview looking to be devalued. However, they create a ton of content. It creates a ton of talking points, and we get fixated because we're fans. I'm a fan now. I don't play anymore. We get fixated on some of the things that we see. Obviously, putting eyeballs to names increases the value of some of these prospects. What's always interesting to me is you always think of Mike Mamula back with the Philadelphia Eagles. Mike Mamula went from like a 5th round prospect to like the 5th top 5 pick in the draft for the Eagles. I think he was out of Boston College because he just killed the combine killer, right? Ran faster, jumped higher, benched more, did everything better than everybody was expected, blew everybody out of the water. Now, I'm not going to sit here and judge the career that Mike Mamula had, based on his original draft prospects. It was probably pretty good, but as a top 5 pick, top 5 picks, usually a generational player, guy that's going to change the franchise, wasn't necessarily that. So you listen to guys like Dan Campbell and Mike Vrabel, guys that played for a long time in the National Football League, and they'll talk about, the combine is what it is. We'll go if we have to go, but really we watch tape. Video demonstrates whether or not these players are good for our team or not. Now, Mark Murphy, the Green Bay Packers president, did say there's some value, but the Packers coaching staff is amongst the teams that are no longer in attendance. I think there's the other question with the combine is they're thinking about going on a road show. I mean, the thing that the difficult part as an ex-player in particular is that we always think that if we do our job the best we can, everybody's doing their job the best they can. We're trying to win Super Bowls, we're trying to win championships, individual level, we're trying to get all pro, we're trying to get the next contract, whatever it is, try to be the best version of yourself. But what we start realizing when Goodell and the NFL start talking about, we're going to take the combine on the road, not that about that at all anymore, right? It's really just how many people can we get to buy a ticket to go see something? How far can we expand the brand? And I'm in Germany right now, and I think the two games that they had at Bayern Munich in Germany, the Bayern Munich Stadium in Germany, they sold out immediately. I think it was sold out in minutes. They could have sold four times the amount of tickets. I mean, the demand was extremely high. Football is getting really big here in Germany. We obviously know what's going on in the UK right now as far as how popular it's becoming. So, in one aspect, I think it's a really good thing. But from the other standpoint, it's difficult because we in this podcast, because Amon and I run it, it's player first. We always think about the players and what's best for them, and this isn't necessarily that. Certainly, if you're moving the combine around, let's say you move it to LA and you got to drive 2 hours in traffic before you get somewhere. It's just you're disrupting everything. That's why I think I think players should. If I was an agent, if I was a mentor for a player, I'm telling them to not go to the combine. I'm telling them to go there for the interviews if they have to go, or go for the unfortunately go for the medical process if they feel like they have to. But the workouts, everything else, we're going to do away from the combine. We're going to set all the conditions. We're going to we're going to control all the variables that we're allowed to control, put out our best effort. One day is plenty. We don't need 2 days to see if we make a mistake. We're not going to make a mistake because we work too hard. Some players are going to like the combine though, and some are not because of that. Because if you're a no-name guy, you go out, you run an exorbitant, you have an incredible time, you put up a score, you make a one-handed catch, all of a sudden you jump to the leaderboard. I think the Georgia tight end ran a 4.6, made a one-handed catch in the end zone. I look at it and I saw you see his initial stance, you see like some ankle mobility issues he might have, and I started immediately going, okay, we can do this, do this, this. Obviously, a great prospect. But does he shoot to the top of the leaderboard because he made a one-hand catch in the end zone? Not for me, but in the eyes of maybe a team president, maybe an owner who doesn't watch football all the time, yeah, the conversation starts coming up. It is really interesting. I know and in particular that guy's comp is Mercedes Lewis, but there's some other guy. There's the tight end class in general is good. They kind of tested how we thought they would test. We already know they look good. It's like you think they're going to look good. They look good on tape. They look good at the combine. Everybody thinks they're good now. It's like, well, they were good before, right? One group that got hit at the combine, and we talked about we on Block Party a couple of weeks ago or last week, we did a thing on a couple of the top safeties. Well, the safety class didn't run particularly well at the combine. And what was interesting was I think 4.5s and 4.6s, which isn't slow by any means, but now you look at the running backs who are 5'10", 210 pounds, 215 pounds running 4.4, 4.3. You look at the wide receivers now kind of in the 4.4 range more. Now the safeties who are 5'10", 6 foot, 6'1", kind of the same build as the running backs, maybe a little leaner, not running as fast as the running back class, and their relative athletic scores, which is a really good system, I think. I think Jim Arthur, the guy from the strength coach for the Bears, in my opinion, Jim's the one who started this because he was doing this in Miami years ago. But somebody came up with an official relative athletic score, and it's basically a score on each measurable: height, weight, body fat, speed, strength, explosiveness, vertical jump, change of direction, three cone drill, etc. As ranked versus all of the composite scores that we have from history. So it's giving you the new score versus historical figures. It's a good way to measure. Just real quick eye check. They put the top percentiles in green, median percentiles in yellow. But things that are really low, they put them in red. So if you just want to do an eyeball scan, you look at a relative athletic score sheet, and if it's all green, you go, "Oh, this guy's pretty good." If guy's all red, it's like a lot of flags. A lot of flags start coming up. So as an eyeball test, or as a quick reference, I think it's very good. You obviously have to dig into that information, but the point is, all the safeties' relative athletic scores went down. So all these guys' scores went down because I think they ran slower than they were supposed to. You know, one thing that is interesting when you sit and watch the combine, and I was with a couple of German coaches yesterday, and we just sat down and watched it for an hour, hour and a half, and they're just over here. They're all shooting repeats, so it's just you're hitting the 40, then you hit all the guys' highlights, and then move on field drills. 40 field drills, move on. 40 field drills, move on. Tight ends, receivers, running backs, quarterbacks, safeties, defensive backs, etc. We saw everybody, and the field drills are very interesting, just because it's fun to watch guys uh, just moving in general, because they're stacking those guys sequentially. You can start seeing, okay, this guy moves better than this guy, moves better than this guy, moves better than this guy. There's a couple guys that maybe didn't run great 40s, but when you watch them move, when you watch them rotate their hips, when you watch how comfortable they are around the ball, when you watch them change direction, it looks a lot different player to player, right? You can see that the tight ends in particular, you can see that with the safeties in particular. I thought it was very unique in the way that maybe the top two guys at those positions moved versus everybody else. Um, it was interesting. The wide receiver class. I think nobody was expecting to have. There's not like that guy who runs a 4.2 necessarily that blows the doors off everyone, as opposed to some years prior. But they're measuring again. You look at the combine. You go, well, you measured how we thought you would measure, and so the conversation around what is there a first round value? You look at the Green Bay Packers, depending on who is leading the conversation. You're looking at tight ends. You're looking at safeties. You're looking at wide receivers. They're always going to draft offensive line. Um, a lot of people say, "Oh, the first round draft pick should be a wide receiver." And you go, "Well, who?" Because what kind of athlete you're looking for? You just got a Christian Watson who runs, what is it, a 4.37 at his height and weight. Romeo Dobbs is a later round pick. Samari Torrey is going to be a guy in development next year. We don't know they're going to bring back from free agency or who they're going to bring in from free agency. If you're going to bring back a Randall Cobb, you're going to bring obviously Sammy Watkins isn't going to be back. Um, you start looking at those guys though, and is there a first round pick that is justifies that? The fact that the Packers haven't drafted a receiver in the first round ever, it would be hilarious if Aaron left and the first thing he did is draft a wide receiver first round, but I wouldn't put it past him. That would be incredible. Um, but I look at safeties and tight ends in particular as really areas of need for this team. Um, there's probably two tight ends that you might look at. Oregon State kid from Notre Dame, the Georgia guy. For me personally, I think the Georgia guy looks like a interesting prospect. But if you want to draft Mercedes Lewis's replacement right now, I just bring back Mercedes Lewis and draft a slightly more athletic guy. And I know that guy ran faster than like the Notre Dame guy or the Oregon State guy. But if you look at them off the line in a 2 point, if you look at their lateral movement, if you look at their kind of their shake and the ability to free themselves from a defensive back or a safety off the line of scrimmage, in addition to the fact that I think all of those guys are going to need help. They're not like Mercedes Lewis type blockers, but I think all those guys can participate in the run game or in the pass protection game. I think they can be physical players, especially if that's what the demand is from day one. They're not just coming in, I'm a slot receiver. I might go with the guy who's got a little more shake at the line of scrimmage and bring back Mercedes Lewis because as a mentor alone, he's going to be worth his weight in gold. Then you look at that safety class, and I know guys didn't run well. This is why, if I'm a safety in this position, I don't know if I would have ran at that combine because I go down to Alabama. Both guys from Alabama could be projected first round picks. They both run maybe slower than they expected. I think it's Jordan Battle and then Brian Branch, who we looked at. Same thing with Jamie from Florida State. Same thing with the Texas A&M guy. Nobody ran quite what they wanted to. So why do you even run? Go to Alabama. If at Alabama you're going to run a 4.4, and now you're going to race this 4.6. It's like the scouts wanted to see that. Well, why? You already first of all, you already know what tape speeds like. We saw Brian Branch on tape. The way he rotates his hips, he can run, looking at the quarterback, run full speed, in stride, not lose ground, run on a straight line. We saw it in a game. We don't need to see it with the underwear Olympics. Now it raises more questions than he needed to be answered because it wasn't fast enough. Okay, so the combine does gives us obviously some talking points. Um, I'd like to talk a little bit about the XFL, the USFL, the German Football League, European Football League. The NFL has done a great job of expanding. And the what's happening right now over here is they have a European Football League has 17 teams. And obviously, look, we're expanding our market. First thing you do for the NFL is you expand your market. You go into the UK. Packers went there last year, and they keep dropping it subtle. Oh, maybe it could be a good home. London could be a good home for a team. Probably not. I mean, the truth is they're probably not going to put a team there. Just logistically, most teams bring in 5 to 15 guys every Monday or Tuesday to work out. So you're going to have a facility in like New York City just to do that for a London team. They're not going to fly them all the way over. You talk about the travel. You talk about the expense of living in London, the currency change, everything, all of that stuff as alluring it is, like I think from a coach, I mean, from my perspective, I'd love to be over here and doing it. But from a player's perspective, having to play 2 games and travel 2 weeks on the road away from the family, kind of combine. So you're always in a hotel. You're living out of a hotel. You probably have a place on the East Coast and the West Coast that they buy, build, or something like that resort in I think it's a resort in North Carolina or Virginia, where a lot of teams stay. If they're on the West Coast, they fly to the East Coast and they got to play 2 weeks in a row. They probably have something like that, but I just don't know if it's feasible. You probably have to have multiple teams over here, and then they're playing each other. So you might have to launch a London team and a team from Munich. Um, but the point is, there's 17 teams in the EFL. It's a European Football League. It's all across Europe. Now, some of the states, I think, or some of the countries over here have more intense fans. I think Germany, in particular. You look at the UK, maybe more so than like Turkey right now. So you have to figure out where the best teams are, the best leagues are. But they're trying to expand this league. So you have GFL, which is like League One in Germany. It's still a club concept, like we would have for youth club soccer, but it's an adult league, 19 years and up. It's competitive. It's their League One, and they have leagues underneath that, and it's a relegation system. So if there's 10 teams in GFL and the last two teams, ninth and tenth place, they're going down to League Two next year. Two teams are coming back up to League One. The reason I'm bringing this up is you look at the XFL, which I think the only news we've got in the XFL is that one of the quarterbacks gave like the playbook to somebody else, and that gosh, who was it? Terrell Beckley. Terrell Buckley was the coach of one of the teams. He, stand up for Florida State back in the day. Just absolutely tarnished his guys on at the halftime speech or the halftime talk with a reporter. Like he needs new guys. He needs guys that want to play, et cetera, et cetera. So what my thought process is, you have potentially the USFL, you have the CFL, you have the XFL, now you have the EFL. How do we create better feeder programs so we can get I think there's a finite number of good players that are worth watching football wise. Like, in other words, if you watch the National Football League, like we can't find 32 top tier quarterbacks to watch right now. So to think that we can have the National Football League, the product they're putting out, with the increased playbooks and the reduced amount of time in practice, the lack of fundamentals, great athletes, fun to watch. No one's the numbers are always going up. I think we're top 88 out of 100 shows on the in the U.S. last year. Now you start thinking about, okay, how do we create a feeder system? I know it's the answer has always been the NCAA, but the NCAA with the SEC growing in power, with the Big Ten growing in power, they're getting the Pac-12, the two top Pac-12 teams. It, everybody's talking about we don't really need the SEC. What are we going to do there? It's interesting to think about what the possibilities are as far as starting to produce a tiered system. You have League One, League Two, League Three. You have a relegation system with the USFL, with the XFL, with CFL, with EFL, and finding these teams, maybe reducing the amount of teams, increasing the amount of good players, increasing the competition level, increasing the pay, so that we can start getting to a point where some of these leagues are paying good money, so these guys can make this a full-time job and their aspirations to go to the NFL or maybe go to League Two where you can make enough money to have a good living. Maybe it sustains you for a while after you retire your retired age. And for the rest of these leagues, maybe you go from the GFL to the EFL to the CFL to the XFL to the USFL to the NFL. That's an interesting prospect. We see in college basketball right now, kids, really good kids, are going to Europe. They're going to Australia. They're going away from the NCAA to get that year because they want to get into a professional model. They want to get professional coaching. They want to play against professional competition. And eventually, the NFL is going to be, or excuse me, the football in general, youth football is going to be the same. They're going to realize, and maybe the NIL, the money that's available in college football, keeps that at bay for a while. But if you can get relegation leagues and league situations where the talent is high because these are the kids that are going to aspire to be in the National Football League and they have the talent to do so. Just a question of developing them. It would be interesting to see how many leagues we can create. Maybe again reduce the amount of teams, reduce the amount of fringe talent, increase the coaching compensation so we get high level coaches that are completely committed. They're not looking for another job. They're just looking to do the best in that environment. Increase the compensation so the players can spend the full amount of time during the year. You only play for 6 months, so you got to train the entire offseason. Over here at the GFL, for example, they practice 2 to 3 times a week. They don't have they don't have what Americans would call a really good strength and conditioning system. It's available here. Like if someone's looking to build that out, it's a need. It's available. There's a need for it. Training facilities, all of that stuff, infrastructure. There's an opportunity as we expand into these new markets, I think, to really create a system where whether it's the XFL's playing against these different teams, you're just trying to find a system where we can get more football, but not reduce the quality so much that it's unrecognizable. And right now it's I think clear cut NFL, high level NCAA, so SEC, Big Ten, then one of these other USFL, XFL, CFL, EFL leagues. The town over here in Europe, I was out with two teams last night. It's pretty good. It's not great, but it's pretty good. I mean, they have comparable athletes that as we do. They just don't have dedicated training systems. So if we can get dedicated training systems in place, we can start farming talent here. Maybe we bring them over to the United States. Some guys are doing that now. Maybe we create a European league like we did with the NFL Europe. It probably has a better chance to go now. You think back in the Green Bay Packers days in 1998, we would send a lot of guys to NFL Europe. That Ron Wolf was a big proponent of. Hey, if you're not playing year one, you're going to go to NFL Europe. I was actually surprised when I didn't go. Um, but it's a great program. I don't know if guys are, because of the 17 games, because of the brand awareness, because I think guys are worried more about longevity right now than just making it. Maybe they push back hard on it, but the truth is, if you get really good high level coaches over here, it's high level competition, 8-game season, you're getting your reps in, you're going to get a lot better. And it's just a great feeder situation. I know they're trying to do that in the XFL, but when you come over here, you put your feet in the ground and you look at what's available as far as resources, as far as interest from fans. There's a real opportunity here. It's exciting. So I've got a couple get off my lawns here this week. The first one is there's a kid at BYU, Brake Freeland, offensive lineman. This kid jumped 37 inches. I'm gonna say that again because he's probably 6'7", 320 pounds. BYU kid, generally big dudes. I don't know how old he is. Maybe he had to go on a mission. Maybe he's 24, 25, 26 years old. Really doesn't matter. He jumped 37 inches on an offensive lineman. I think Tristan Wirfs had the prior record. That blew the record out of the water. I'm going back and looking at my scores. 37 is as good as I've ever heard of. I Let me see, let me rephrase that. I have never heard of an offensive lineman being able to jump 37 inches. So these kids are only getting better. The 40s are only getting better. The training systems, the professionalism, the speed camps, learning how to you're learning your start. It's not doesn't make you a better football player, but it is a good indicator of athleticism, and that's certainly why a lot of these guys spend so much time doing combine work before the combine instead of just learning how to become better football players. Um, Another thing, Aaron Rodgers gets roasted on Kimmel about his darkness retreat, and then Bakhtiari comes to his aid. I don't know if you Packers fans saw this. I just thought it was hilarious. Like I think he said something to the effect of, "Tell me how you're on Epstein's list without saying you're on Epstein's list." Oh goodness, Bakhtiari from the top ropes, man. That was amazing tweet. Amazing tweet. The guy's got personality out of the wazoo. Um, And then we just talked about the last thing. The fear is that we're oversaturating the sport because there's not enough quality product. And as a fan of the sport, as someone who is still knee deep in it, working with guys, and working with youth players, and now working with these development guys over here in Germany. You want to see the sport progress, but you don't. You want to get the quality high enough so doesn't feel oversaturated, so fans don't walk away. The NFL Europe failed. It's for some reason 20, 30 years ago, 25 years ago, it failed. Uh, it was rescinded. I think they had 10 teams. They were playing 8 games a year. It was a good model. They're not doing it. They stopped doing it because there wasn't, obviously if you're making a ton of money, you're doing it. Here, they're selling out these NFL games. This feels a lot like rugby in the UK. You sell out national team games. It's hard to fill the stadium for club teams because the talent level is not there because the pool's too wide. Like it's a million miles wide, an inch deep. They need a bigger talent pool, or they need to reduce the amount of teams, increase the level of play. But it would be great to figure out how to get that going, maybe across multiple continents, because there is a need out there. The fans are looking for it. You think about March, April, maybe just after the NCAA tournament or the NBA finals, you think about that window of time that you have to fill space where everybody's dying You can get quality football in there right now. You can make a lot of money, but you have to get quality football. Where does that come from? So you probably have to switch offenses because you're just not going to get the quarterbacks that you want. Maybe you're running RPO all the time. Maybe you run an option. Maybe you just go, but the old pro style, multiple reads, that ability. We can't find 32 guys, so I don't know how you're going to find guys outside of the league. But for the rest of the positions, if you get great developmental coaches, you can get them good in a pretty good amount of time. Obviously, have to find some athletes. People want to see speed. I think you would assume that there's enough of them still out there, but it's an exciting proposition. And again, just being here, feet in the ground, working with these guys, and it's an exciting proposition. So I'm going to do another block party at the end of the week. Probably, hopefully, if I can get some tape on these tight ends. Packers fans, we're going to be back next week with Amon Green. Start talking a little bit about free agency. Hopefully, there'll be some prospects out there. There'll be a little bit more to talk about. I know we're getting started the league year, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to talk about the tag that's coming up tomorrow, I believe, what that means potentially for some of the guys on this team. Until then, find me at Mike Wall 68 on Twitter and TikTok. Process to Perform on Instagram. And have a great week, everyone. We'll talk to you next time around.